My name is Aron Arngrimsson, and I'm here to talk to you about Truk Lagoon and Bikini Atoll. Just to give you a little bit of a background of myself and the Dirty Dozen Expeditions. So this is an expedition company I founded in 2017, and that's kind of where I've been operating in Truk Lagoon since 2017. I used to live on the boat there in Micronesia for about a year and a half. I was working with Craig as well, as that's in the chat, as you maybe noticed. But when I came back from living in Micronesia for a year and a half, before that, I'd owned technical diving school operations, been in the industry for around 15 years. So I saw a huge opportunity to bring something special to Truk and Bikini. And that was all about doing these kind of bespoke itineraries to both destinations. So the way we kind of approach it is we have special guests. So if you have, Jill Heinerth or Mark Powell, Richard Lundgren, any of these kind of juggernauts in the diving industry, we would invite them to be special guests on our trips. And then we'd run a custom itinerary where like 75% of the boat's capacity is only taken. So there's plenty of space for the techies. And we run a custom wreck trip. So, the wrecks that we choose in Truk, for example, are very focused on the clientele that we have. And this was all based on me and the skipper and Craig, having a beer and talking about our ultimate charter if we were running it, and now we are. So the point of this presentation, like I said, Truk Lagoon and Bikini Atoll, how are they different and what are they all about? Because I can imagine most of you have read and watched documentaries about both destinations. But if you're not like really well versed in both of them, you would think they would be fairly similar, but nothing could be closer or further away from the truth on that part. They're actually almost black and white, and that's kind of what we're going to cover. So I'm going to start by sharing the screen, and then we get started. Let's see. Share, optimize video clip, bam. And then all right, so we're going to start with Truk Lagoon, and the topics we're going to be covering, their history. So Operation Hailstone in Truk Lagoon and Operation Crossroads in Bikini Atoll. How are they different? We're going to talk about the shipwrecks. So what type of wrecks can you find in each destination? We're going to be talking about the diving depths. So what is the average depth in Truk Lagoon and the skill levels needed? Do you need, can you do it as an open water diver? Can you do it as a advanced trimix diver? Like what's the certification needed in each destination? We're going to talk about cost. So how you plan to do such a big trip. I don't know about you, but I've been a dive bum my entire life. So going on expensive liveaboards is not just something I can do quite easily. So that's something we took into consideration when we created our business as well. We have, dates like 4 years in advance, and we do these kind of installments for people. So we make it affordable for everybody. We're going to talk about the travel time. So difference in travel to each of these destinations, because it's actually quite vast. So here's just a picture I really enjoy. We took it last year on the most famous wreck in Truk Lagoon called the Fujikawa Maru. I could sit down now and talk to you about Operation Hailstone for hours, and so can Craig, that's in this chat. We're such geeks, that's kind of how the typical diver that goes to Truk, they are huge history geeks. It's about a lot more than just diving when you go to Truk. But one thing I found in these presentations is there is a documentary that Jacques Cousteau filmed. It's called The Lagoon of Lost Ships, and that one is featuring Truk. And he has a little slide about Operation Hailstone in Truk. So I actually have that clip with me, and I believe he will explain it a lot better in a lot shorter amount of time with some cool pictures and audio. So I'm just going to skip to that right now. And that's gonna cover Operation Hailstone in Truk Lagoon. So how did the biggest concentration of war wrecks get created in the world?
Truk, a tropical atoll on the eastern tip of the Caroline Islands. Its lagoon a burial ground for a vast fleet of ships. Entering the sheltered bay, Philippe Cousteau and his team from Calypso are confronted by a ghostly display. Oxidized mementos of war, now symbols of waste. Tragic testimony that a battle was fought here. The rusted residue of Truk's violent past. During World War II, Truk was home base for the combined fleet of the Japanese Imperial Navy. From the beginning of the war, its buildup was fast and efficient. Truk was the center of Japan's defense perimeter, not only the main staging area for its fleet, but also an important air base. It was called the Gibraltar of the Pacific, and it was considered the strongest naval base in this part of the world since Pearl Harbor. Most of the fortifications were built for defense against a landing from the sea, but the Allied decision was to neutralize Truk by a concentrated air attack. On the morning of February 16, 1944, the first strike. 70 American fighter planes. Initial objective, the airfields. .275 aircraft are destroyed before they can take off. Japanese air defense is quickly paralyzed. Next, the main targets, the ships anchored in Truk Lagoon. The Japanese command has ordered its warships to safer waters. Delayed by bad weather and trapped at anchor are more than 30 vessels, the pride of Japan's auxiliary fleet. In 2 days, the lagoon is transformed from a naval fortress to a ship's graveyard.
So there we go. That was kind of a short recap of what happened in Operation Hailstone during World War II. So if we kind of look at, I mean, it's often said, you know, when you look at Operation Hailstone, it's kind of the revenge of Pearl Harbor. So if we look at this in numbers, what happened? We have Task Force 58 coming in with their aircraft carriers and battleships and destroyers, and they had 500 airplanes when Operation Hailstone was conducted. Over a 48-hour attack. Now, during this attack, they destroyed 50 plus vessels in the lagoon and 250 airplanes. Now, what's notable about the vessels that are in Truk Lagoon is the vast majority of them are merchant vessels, because for the most part, this was a refueling station, it was a repair anchorage. There was a substantial amount of Navy vessels there also, but the admiral there got tipped off right before Operation Hailstone happened, and he was able to take out some of the bigger Navy vessels out of the lagoon before the attack actually happened. So, assuming, let's just say there are exactly 50 vessels, merchant vessels in Truk, 9 out of 10 on average are merchant vessels, and then that 1 out of 10 is kind of Navy vessels, a submarine, a destroyer, etc. So that's a huge contrast to remember compared to Bikini Atoll, which we'll speak about later. This slide, it's an excellent drone photo that our skipper Martin Critch took with a drone over the lagoon, and he managed to splice it with an aerial that was taken during Operation Hailstone. So if you look to the right of the picture, you can see our liveaboard off to the side there. And to your left, you can see what almost resembles an atomic explosion happening. This is the Ikoku Maru, one of the biggest vessels in Truk Lagoon, getting a bomb into one of its holds, which was packed with explosives. A very, very impressive wreck, a passenger cargo vessel. So basically, if you imagine a shipwreck and half of it is completely gone, as in totally eviscerated, and the other half is completely intact. That's what happened in this explosion. Basically, 5,000 tons of steel turned into dust, and the remaining part of the vessel went straight to 60 meters, along with 1,000 people in the hold. That's another thing to remember about Truk Lagoon. It has that human factor. You know, there was over 4,000 people that died during this operation, whereas, for example, Operation Crossroads, nuclear tests, they didn't have any humans on board. They had lots of animals, but no humans fatalities during the tests, although there were some and after and still are today. Here's a fairly recent picture we took of Truk as well in the same area. You can see the oil leak there. I think that's coming from the Ikoku. An interesting thing I want to mention that we just released last night. We released a 3D interactive map of Truk Lagoon. So one of the high school teachers in Xavier High School in Truk is a programmer, and he created this really nice 3D map of Truk, which we integrated with all the wrecks and started where we also could put photos on each wreck. It's very clever. If you go on our website and in our knowledge base, there is a direct link to it, and you can explore it after the presentation. Another great drone photo I just wanted to show off. It just shows how awesome Truk Lagoon is. You know, sometimes if you're in a vicinity, if you're on a wreck diving trip, the distance you have to make from one wreck to the next can be quite significant. It can be overnight steam in many cases. In Truk, there is no such thing. It's quite a small lagoon, and sometimes the turnover time from going from one wreck to the other is literally like 5 minutes or less. Craig can testify to that. You know, I think the longest kind of steam we're doing would be like 35, 45 minutes. It doesn't really get longer than that. So like I said, you have a the biggest concentration of war wrecks on the planet in a small lagoon. So a lot of variety, a lot of wrecks to explore. This photo that I wanted to show is of Etten Island. It looks a bit different than all the other islands because they look, you know, they have these big dunes, big mountains, look like Jurassic Park. This one is completely like a pancake, and it looks pretty obvious, and it probably is. There was an airport built on Etten Island. Very interesting. They basically knocked the whole mountain there flat and created an air base, which is very visible still even today, where the coconuts have grown through the cracks of the concrete. It's an island we actually visit during an expedition, and you can meet the locals there, see the Air Force Base and other things. On this slide, we have Richard Lundgren from GOE. He was with us on an expedition, and I think I filmed him just speaking a few words about how the diving in Truk is. So let's see if it plays.
My home turf is the Baltic Sea, where we have to be challenged with very cold water, usually limited visibility and so on. Here in Truk Lagoon it's quite the opposite. If you would like to prefer, you could call it bathtub water. It's hot and warm, very nice, and almost unlimited visibility. And to make it even better, rarely any current at all. It's heaven on earth for diving.
So it's a great endorsement from Richard Lundgren there. But basically, in an effect, Truk Lagoon for me represents accessible and diverse wreck diving. I know the pictures I've been showing you have a lot of like people in twin sets with deco cylinders and rebreathers, but to tell you the truth, you could have an open water license and have a fantastic journey in Truk. And one of the examples I can show you of that would be to take you on a little virtual dive, so to speak, of one of my favorite wrecks. If you ever do a trip with me, you'll get very tired of the word favorite because I use it like 15 times a day. But that's simply because there are just so many incredible wrecks in Truk. But yeah, Nippo is definitely in my top 3 of the 50, I think. And there are many reasons for that. It is very diverse and accessible to a large variety of divers. If we have a look at the slide here, the top of the bridge is at 24 meters. So anybody with advanced open water certification and beyond can have a fantastic time on this wreck. It goes down to 47 meters in the seabed. So, you know, if you have a TDI extended range certification, again, you can explore this wreck to the fullest. But let me assure you, if you have a 40 meter certification, there is you can see 80% of the wreck just fine. But just to give you an overview of how easy the wreck diving in Truk Lagoon is compared to something like Bikini Atoll, let's look at the vessel itself. So you have a merchant vessel. The biggest advantage of a merchant vessel diving it compared to a Navy vessel is that a merchant vessel has a lot of open holds. So on the Nippo here, for example, I believe we have 5 holds on it, okay? And these are giant open holes where you can go in and explore with lots of natural light. So it's not like you need an advanced wreck diving certificate and the rest of it to enjoy the Nippo to the fullest. Like, it couldn't be further from the truth. And the same goes with the superstructure, you know, lots of open space, lots of natural light, very easy diving to do. Another thing about the Nippo that makes it very easy to navigate is that it's sitting upright, okay? With a slight list to port, but nothing to cry home about. So another thing that's great about the Nippo is it's just so full of points of interests, which we'll go through once I start showing the rest of the pictures. But again, you know, if you look at this drone shot of Truk, you can see the Truk Master, our boat, is moored off on the Nippo there. So to be honest, it's not the worst view to start your virtual dive there, to jump off the back of the boat. Fantastic place. Once you get down, the bow greets you. And once you start swimming across the bow, you just see these gigantic holes open up. The visibility is usually fantastic in a place like this. You know, warm water. I mean, to be honest with you, again, you see a lot of dry suits in my photos. I'll tell you if you want to know the reasons why I do that, but it's certainly not for thermal exposure. You could be in a 3mm wetsuit and you'd be just fine. So warm water, plenty of visibility. Usually there's no current on this wreck unless you come on a bad day. And once you step into the holes, there's just, you know, mountains of stuff to explore. And I think, I mean, compared to other popular wreck destinations, maybe Scapa Flow, you know, there's a lot of stuff that has been retrieved or taken from there. In Truk, it's very different. All the portholes are in place. I mean, you see things on wrecks in Truk you would never see in Scapa, for example. It would just not be possible. But I mean, he's jumping into the first hole there, and there's, you know, lots of gas masks greeting him. On the bottom of the floor, you have range finders, you have bombs, you have guns, you have, you know, you swim further across the deck. There's a tank, Type 195 Hago tank greeting you, you know. Can you believe there's 3 people can fit into that thing? You know, you go into the other holes, there's a bottle of, you know, hundreds of sake bottles. One of my theories how the Japanese lost this battle is they were like persistently drunk. When you go through all these merchant vessels, there's just boxes and boxes of beer and hard liquor. So I bet they were a bit buzzed when the actual attack happened. Here's a picture of a diver descending into the engine room of the Nippo Maru. So again, you know, do you need a bit of experience penetrating wrecks to do this part of the dive? Sure. But again, you know, with our guides, you know, it's something we do on a daily basis. And there's actually a huge bomb hole. I think I have it here on the bottom of the wreck. This bomb hole is widely believed to be the first damage to a ship in Operation Hailstone. Nippo Maru is believed to be the first ship that sunk. So that is obviously a huge light source in the lower engine room, and very cool. But in the lower engine room itself, you know, you have these incredible consoles and well, just everything that is in a normal engine room, but it's just so well preserved. And there are some incredible photography opportunities. Here's the ship's clock in the engine room, you know, given the time of when Operation Hailstone started. Quite fascinating. You know, and now you swim outside of the hole in the engine room. You come back up on the deck on the other side of the wreck, on the stern side, and you know, you have these AA guns greeting you. You have, I mean, there's just stuff everywhere to explore. And then obviously you have the bridge itself, which is just fascinating. So many things to see, and there's so many good photographs to see in Truk. That was kind of the Nippo for me. But if we look at this slide, I mean, it's just a representation. Are there any challenging wrecks in Truk? Absolutely. This is a line that's being made for the engine room of the Ikoku Maru, and the exception is more than the rule. We don't do that dive, and there's very few people that can do that dive safely. So it's one of those things where we look at the conditions, we look at the skills of the diver before we conduct it. and it's quite deep as well. So there are definitely challenging wrecks in Truk, not to say, but that's more the exception than the rule, to be honest with you. Most of them are like the Nippo, very, very easy, very accessible, not intimidating, just warm water and pure diving enjoyment, where you just have sights like this. You know, I have a big fetish for for engine rooms. That's maybe why I stayed so long in Truk and did just like 4 hours in the water every day for a year and a half. Just spectacular stuff, you know. Very, very cool. So if we look at the skill level needed, so the minimum certification needed for a Truk is an open water diver. And we actually do recreational charters to Truk. We have Andy Torbett. I don't know if you know, well, I'm sure some of you know him. He's a quite famous guy in the UK, I believe. He was a stuntman on the new James Bond. He's a special guest for us in Truk Lagoon in January next year for our recreational trip. I think actually we have a few spots left on that one. But anyway, open water is plenty to enjoy Truk. And I just want to drive that point home on the next slide. So if you look at this slide, this is a representation of maybe half of the wrecks or something, like the most popular ones. And you can see the green and the orange represents 0 to 40 meters. So as you can see here, the vast majority is something that you can dive with an advanced open water certification. There's only a few wrecks that will require technical diving certifications. That's not to say there are not some amazing wrecks down deep as well. I mean, we have the $1 million wreck, San Francisco, Maru. We obviously have the Ikoku and the Oite, tons of others. So yeah, what I can say is I wouldn't let your certification hinder you from going. I wouldn't be in the mindset of saying, I'm going to wait 3 years to go so I can get my tech stuff and do everything. I wouldn't do that personally. I would go there as a recreational diver if I was there right now or as soon as I can and enjoy Truk recreationally, because it is literally impossible to enjoy this destination to the fullest in one trip. And the price point, it allows you to return, especially if you're just doing a week and you go and come back to another week. It's as a techie, it's not a problem at all. But if you get to the money matters, if you're doing a week or 10-day charter, the price is somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 US for the itinerary. You should count on adding another $1,500 or to $2,000 is more likely for like marine park fees and your flight, and you know, your beer tap or Wi-Fi or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of the amount of money you should expect to be spending. If we talk travel, there's usually around 30 to 40 hour travel time from most major hubs. So you guys are from the UK. You could either fly to the States and jump on the island hopper, go to Hawaii and hop all the way to Truk, or if you're flying east, you could go, you know, to Japan, to Korea, to Philippines. But either way you go, you're going to be going to Guam as the end destination before jumping on the island hopper for your last stop to Truk. There are loads of tips and tricks how to do this correctly. I've taught people to get their flights for free. I do it quite often. United is one of those airlines that releases credit cards where with your spending you get miles, you know. So if you can get a United credit card, you spend $3,000 with it, for example, putting a deposit on your trip, the miles and rewards you get actually can pay for a return ticket to Truk. So that can actually save you $1,500. Something to think about. I'm also like an expert in getting people up to 100 kilos of luggage for free. These are usually the biggest hurdles people face, how to reduce flight price and reduce paying excess baggage fees. That's something we have a lot of information about that on our blog, on our website, and in our knowledge base for you guys, should you be interested. So to summarize, Truk Lagoon the history is about warfare. This happened during World War II with the Allied forces making their way to Japan, and it had 4,500 people killed in conflict. 9 out of 10 of the vessels in the lagoon are merchant vessels. The depth is 25 to 35 meters on average. The skill level needed, open water. The cost, 3,000 to 5,000 for the trip. And the travel time is usually 35 to 40 hours on average. So to conclude about Truk Lagoon, I'm just going to show a little video, quite an old one, from our trip there in 2018, I think. It's like 2 minutes or whatever. And then I think it might be reasonable to have a little break and, well, and let you guys ask questions about Truk, and then we can move on to Bikini. So I'm just going to put this movie on, and then I'll stop screen sharing afterwards.
The wrecks are as good as everyone says. They are extremely well preserved, and the number of artifacts on each wreck is just mind-blowing.
A friend of mine once described it. He said, if Disney did wrecks, Disney had made a blockbuster here. It's fantastic.
Amazed me, I wasn't actually thinking about all the marine life that goes around the wrecks.
It's really difficult to pick a favorite wreck here. There are so many, and they all have many great features that stand out.
Once we exit the water, we are immediately handed our gear off. We are helped out of the water, and we are right away given a cold juice of some sort, which is so nice.
Basically, there's no other place like it. The wrecks we've got here, the variety of the wrecks, there's nowhere else in the world what has this.
My favorite wreck is the Aikoku Maru. Imagine the sheer size of this ship at a depth which is not attainable for recreational divers. The possibility of us diving it on this trip for such a long bottom time with all the logistics we had makes it very special.
Most of the operations in Truk don't go to certain wrecks. And these are these hidden gems in the lagoon that are very rarely visited. We came up with a unique itinerary, which we decided we wanted to show my dearest friends. It only started as a trip for close friends to come and join on, but it's now turned into a fully fledged concept.
Nowhere else can you get so close to history and get such a real feel for history, please, when you're diving the wrecks in Truk Lagoon.
I invite you to come and join us on these unique wreck itineraries. Okay, here's our calendar. It's something you can find on our website as well. But let me try and get out of this so we can start the questions. Is that stop sharing now? Great. I don't know how you guys want to do this. What do you think? Piers, you were running this, right? Do you want to, or Rob, you were running this. Do you want to run a question round?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if anyone's got any questions, do unmute yourself and shout up. Personally, I've been to Truk myself back in 2018, and it is absolutely amazing. And there is the amount of life there just amazed me. The amount of life on all the wrecks, and you know, some of the wrecks at shallow depths are absolutely phenomenal. The life, the anemones and the fish life over them just looks absolutely amazing.
It's an often overseen fact, and it's very good that you mentioned this, that the marine life is amazing. Shinkoku, the oil tanker, it's often considered to be one of the best wreck dives on the planet. It's overrun by coral and soft coral.
Is that the one that comes virtually up to the surface? It's only about...
No, that's the Fujikawa. There's like this huge oil tanker. Yeah. It's quite shallow as well, with the bridge coming at around 15 meters. But like there is just so much coral and sharks and turtles, and you know, I'm not really a marine life guy, like not as much as I used to be. I'm here for the rust, but you can't ignore the how much fantastic marine life there is there as well.
No, precisely. I mean, that's it. I was going to see the wrecks and the history and then everything else, but you know, that side of it just blew me away. And it's, yeah, you mentioned about the dry suits, people wearing dry suits over there. I didn't. I dived in a wetsuit, and I got very warm in the wetsuit. So do you want to just fill in a little bit why people do dive in dry suits? Yeah,
so people make a lot of fun of me for that, but I don't think anybody has been in Truk for an extended period of time. And if you spend a lot of time in Truk and you're diving a lot every day, well, one thing's going to happen, especially if you're in a wetsuit, and it might happen to you on a 10-day charter as well. Your skin's going to start to get mushy, and you're going to be diving around a lot of sharp, rusty metal, which can give you some nasty infections and cuts and bruises. So that's not very nice. On top of that, you have, you know, one wreck, maybe two, that have some of aviation fuel that can burn you. That's not very nice either. And on top of that, you know, secondary buoyancy device, like my trim, like I'm so much more comfortable diving a rebreather in a dry suit. That's like my main motivator on top of that. Yeah, a lot of people would refer to the Truk trim, don't they, for the guys in the wetsuits. Yeah, the Truk trim. So like, I just find, like, for me, it's just so much more comfortable to dive a dry suit that way. But it's also because of the cuts and bruises, the infections, which can get quite bad in Truk. and the aviation fuel and the rest of it. So I actually also wear gloves where the tips are cut off and a 3mm hood. And it's not for thermal protection in the short run. It's for protection against the elements. But I will say, it is very common that people that dive in the wetsuits they came with, they're getting chilly on the last days. You have to remember your body's being submerged for, 4 hours a day. Your body core temperature is going to start dropping ever so slightly, and people start getting chillier a bit easier towards the end of the trip. I mean, it's nothing you won't survive, but that's another reason for me, if I was constantly back to back on trips, the dry suit would make that annoyance a lot easier as well. So that's why you should dry suit. Yeah. Any other questions?
So Aron, what do people that are traveling do about jet lag? Do you have days before and after?
That's an excellent question. So on the trips that we offer, we create like a group chat. People are in this software that we have where they can have a messenger style chat and a message board. And one of the things we bring up is jet lag. We give people a custom schedule, where they have an option to arrive a couple of days early. We tell them what hotel to go to and get some rest. I recommend like minimum 24 hours before. Recommended 48 hours before to arrive. And especially if you're doing tech, either way, actually. The decompression sickness cases I have seen in Truk, although there are very few considering the type of profiles you're diving, like constantly repetitive diving every day. A lot of it had to do with people arriving just off the plane. I think it's a huge factor of getting skin bends, is arriving in poor shape, and then the first couple of days overdoing it, and then get skin bent, and then the rest of your trip is shot. So, my opinion, to avoid that completely, arrive 24 hours before minimum. Get a lot of water in you, a lot of sleep, and just get ready, because I mean, it's a holiday, but 4 hours a day in the water kicks your ass too.
I've done dives in the Red Sea where it's hard work, doing repetitive dives. So what's a typical day like? What time do you start diving? What time would you end?
Yeah, it's a good question. So depending on if it's a technical or recreational itinerary, it's all about around 7 a.m., 6:45, kind of around that time. Let's just assume it's a technical diving itinerary. The first dive is around 8:30, I believe. Get out of the water by 10:30 or so, have lunch and whatever. And then the second dive is around 2:30. So we have a rule on the technical itineraries. There's a minimum surface interval, and this is never broken. Minimum surface interval 4 hours before your next dive. And on the recreational ones, obviously you're doing 4 dives a day. That's a bit shorter, but then again, you're doing no stop limits as well. But on the technical side, you're doing, 2 to 2.5 hour run times, especially if you're on a rebreather, right? So we can assume that you'd be waking up, having breakfast, around 7-ish, and you'd be finishing your diving day at around 4:30, 5 o'clock. So it's a full-on day.
You mentioned about the infection and stuff, getting scratches and bits and pieces. One of the problems I had when I was out in Truk was I managed to get an ear infection.
Yes.
Having someone, I've never had an ear infection in my life.
Yeah, it's kind
until
of like
I went
Mexico
to
that way.
Truk.
Yeah.
And apparently that's a very common thing.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of like Mexico. I mean, you have this beautiful warm water. It looks very clean, but you have to remember what's beneath it, polluting it. So I usually, I mean, if I started getting ear infections, I would have some ear beer with me. So, I don't know what mix you guys make. I mean, there's alcohol, vinegar, and water, a bit of olive oil in there, whatever, put it in the ear before every dive. That would be a lifesaver in that kind of a scenario, I would say. So always good to have a bit of ear beer at hand, and just put it in as a prevention cost. Prevention is better than cure, I guess. Yeah.
Having said that, we actually don't get as many as you'd think. We get a few, but it's not as bad as you would think.
So, maybe not as bad as Mexico.
Yeah. So the few years I've been on the boat, if we got one a trip, that would be a lot. I don't even think we get one a trip. So,
yeah.
So, but as Aron said, prevention is good. A hood, if you're predisposed to ear issues,
yeah, that's another reason I was wearing a hood actually.
Yeah.
On the trip I did, there was about 50 of us, and I think there was 2 of us got infections. So it's not a massive problem, but it is something to be aware of. Should we move on to Bikini and cover that, and then
happy
to. There'll be some more questions after that one.
Yeah. Okay, so let me try this again. Bam. Is that working? I think so. And play. Okay, so let's talk about Bikini Atoll. Let's talk about Operation Crossroads. Let's talk about some of the most fantastic Navy vessels on the planet, all in one lagoon. I want to start this section of the presentation with another video. It's a video that I edited with some historical footage that got declassified. And it starts with Oppenheimer crying on film, regretting the monster that he has created. And then there's some historical footage of the preparations of Operation Crossroads. And then in specific, the Baker explosion is being detonated. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen pictures or footage of this before, but if you have not, I can assure you your jaw is about to drop completely. So without any further ado, and enjoy.
Few people cried. Most people were silent. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
The evacuated ruler of Bikini, King Judah, gets a front row seat at the bomb blast. Seconds to go, and... 2, 1, fire.
And we had to be very, very careful on how we use those bombs.
But old Sarah finally goes down in the cause of science.
Okay, I get goosebumps every time I watch that. So Bikini Atoll and Operation Crossroads. What can I not say about this place? I mean, one of the reasons I stayed on the boat so long in Truk was that they were preparing, the vessel was preparing to launch their Bikini Atoll program and season. And that's actually what happens now, is that the Truk Master, the vessel that we use in Truk Lagoon, it is seasonal. So, from May to October, it's in Bikini. And from October to May, it's in Truk Lagoon. So this is back in, I don't know, 2017, when we were preparing for the first Bikini Atoll season, which was conducted in 2018. And I can tell you, it's something we all waited for a very long time. This is something that a lot of divers do at the end of their dive career. I literally had a customer that asked me on the last dive, does anybody want to buy a JJ? And straight after that last dive, he retired from diving permanently. It was his last thing he wanted to do. And he was happy, and that was it. He was done. And that's the kind of approach that people take towards Bikini Atoll. And I can sympathize with that. I consider myself extremely fortunate to be able to do that destination on a regular basis. Not only is it extremely far away and hard to get to, so scheduling wise, it's hard to do for the average family man. It's also the price range is vastly more expensive than Truk Lagoon. But anyway, let's get back on track. Talking about Operation Crossroads and how it compares to Operation Hailstone. Instead of warfare, we're talking about a nuclear test that was conducted. So this is after World War II. So when you win a world war, you can take other nations' navy. So that's kind of what the U.S. did. You know, they took one of the prized possessions from the Germans, took the Prinz Eugen. They took the Nagato from the Imperial Japanese Navy. You know, their pride and joy. Had the biggest guns on a Navy vessel in the world at the time. So they took all these vessels, you know, from them in humiliation. And then they're like, oh, what should we do with these nice vessels? I know, let's blow them to smithereens. Because they had all these atomic weapons they just got. And they only had a chance to try it twice in Japan. So now they're like, we never got to find out how to use it on Navy vessels. A fun fact that not many people know is there were actual discussions about Operation Hailstone being conducted with a nuclear weapon. That was discussed. Obviously, history shows that we chose against that, and it was done later in Bikini, but it was on the table at one point. So yeah, in Operation Crossroads, they had an aerial test, so a bomb dropped from the sky, and an aquatic test, which was the first of its kind. So they basically put an atomic bomb 25 or 20 meters underwater and detonated it. And that is the iconic photo you have in the background of this slide. So if we look at the target fleet for Operation Crossroads, there was 95 vessels, and with a support fleet of 150 vessels and 42,000 staff, which a lot of them got cancer afterwards. I remember being in Salt Lake City in the airport, grabbing a taxi a few years ago, and somehow the guy overheard us speaking about Bikini, and he said, "Oh, I was in Operation Crossroads." We were like, "Wow, that's fascinating." He's like, "Yeah, I got cancer now." You know, a lot of the servicemen. I mean, that's why I say warfare in Operation Hailstone, people lost their lives at the actual event. Crossroads didn't have any casualties except for a couple of fishermen, I think, accidentally at the event itself, and some pigs and chickens and whatever. But it did have a detrimental human factor on the people that were there from the Navy, and also the poor inhabitants. Obviously, the people of Bikini were evacuated, but they were thrown on some, you know, another island in their country, which was not suitable for habitat, and they got a lot of radiation, and their kids have cancer and the rest of it. So, you know, again, a lot of sad stories come from both of these events. And that's a huge part of when we do these trips. You know, of course, we're there to enjoy the diving, but we're also there to learn history and appreciate what happened during these events. And knowing this information will make us want to not to repeat the same mistakes as we did in the past. Anyway, I digress. So basically, in a nutshell, 20 vessels were destroyed during the test, and what remain today in the lagoon are 10 main wrecks. So that's only 20% compared to what is in Truk. So that's a huge contrast already, the number of wrecks compared to Truk. And I can tell you that 9 out of 10, because there's exactly 10 wrecks in Bikini, are Navy vessels. There's only one merchant vessel. If we look at the travel, it takes around 40 hours plus to get to Kwajalein and to Majuro, which is kind of the Marshall Islands is a neighbor to the FSM and Truk. But then you have to account, once you get to Kwajalein, you get to this, you know, secret army base. They greet you with M16s, tell you to get in line, put you into a holding pen, check out your paperwork. Then they release you, of course, sort of. They take you into a taxi, put you onto the pier, throw you onto this boat, and they never want to see you again. Not the friendliest. Well, actually they are. But they put you on the boat and off you go to the neighboring island of Ibai next to Kwajalein, and that's where the liveaboard vessel is. And that's where you embark. And you have none less than a 30-hour steam from Ibai to Bikini. So going from 40 plus hours just to get to the country, we're actually talking about 70-hour plus in total. So the travel time compared to Truk, even though they're fairly close to each other, is massive. So it's not something, I mean, it's hard enough to get time off work for Truk, but it's a lot harder for Bikini, especially because we have longer trips there as well. Oh. So if we look at Bikini Atoll itself, there it is. As you can see by the scale below, it's not the largest lagoon either. But what makes it even more convenient is the target area is much more concentrated than Truk even. So it's literally like a couple of minute putt between wrecks every day. Same as Truk, but even easier. So that is the least of our concerns when you're in Bikini. Let's talk about the tests a little bit. So we have Able, aka Gilda, test was conducted on June 30th, 1946. That was the aerial test I mentioned. The yield, 23 kilotons, or the equivalent of 23,000 tons of TNT. Created a 0.5 kilometer fireball, started fires 3 kilometers away, and sank 5 ships. So the pilot actually missed the drop point by couple of miles. Either way, it was a bit of a flop. The whole thing, when it was done, the generals watching were not impressed. You know, they had like 70% of the world's cinema equipment there. You know, journalists everywhere wanting to flex off the American Navy muscle right there, and it was actually a huge failure. But nothing could prepare them to what happened with Baker, aka the Helen of Bikini, which was the second test conducted on July 24th, 1946. So it was the same yield, but a bit different effect, as you can see, with a 5.5 Richter scale earthquake, a 30-meter tsunami, 4 meters of 4 million tons of sea and sand evaporated, and it sank almost a double amount of ships. So as you can see, a lot more effective overall. a little funny fact before we crack on. I forgot to Google this man's name. I can never remember his name. But anyway, I think it's this French designer, you know, the guy that came up with the bikini garment that we all know today. The reason it's called bikini is because of Operation Crossroads. He watched the tests probably on his television, and he was very inspired by what he saw, and he wanted to create an explosive garment. And that's what we have as our bikinis today. So a little fun fact there for you about bikini. Yeah, here's one shot that we took of Nagato, the Japanese battleship. So these are the biggest guns on a battleship in the world at the time, 16-inch guns. You see how big they are compared to the technical diver there. You know, he's at around 55, 60 meters, something like that. I think we did an hour bottom time to get this shot, but yeah, there's some seriously fun stuff to explore in bikini. If we look at this slide, just a simplified photo of the bikini wrecks. So you can see the list of the wrecks in bikini 1 to 9. You might notice that there should be 10 there, but that's because there's only 9 wrecks in Bikini Atoll. There are 10 wrecks in Bikini on our itinerary, but that's because the 10th wreck is not in Bikini, it's in Kwajalein, where you start your journey. And you go and dive that wreck as well, and that's Prince Eugen. And Prince Eugen survived Operation Crossroads. They were going to tow it back, and then it sank right outside of Kwajalein. So yeah. I wanted kind of to do a virtual dive on the Bikini Atoll as well, just to show the contrast from the Nippo Maru that we just watched. And I picked the aircraft carrier because talk about black and white. You know, like 50,000 tons instead of 5,000. And wow. Look at this. Here's the schematics. The schematics we have on our website as well. It's a 20 megabyte PDF document, 20 pages, if you want to be a geek and explore them. But as you can see, looking at this slide, it is quite a big vessel with hundreds of compartments. The best analogy I have for the Saratoga is it kind of reminds me of the zombie apocalypse. You know, when you go to the mall, like in a classic zombie movie. So, you know, you get to the mall, it's all dark, there's shit everywhere. You know, you go into a store and everything's been thrown everywhere. And there's multiple levels, hundreds of shops, and the lights are turned off. That's kind of what the Saratoga reminds me of, because you have this gigantic steel structure underwater that has these openings, and once you go inside, it is a maze, and it's not to be taken lightly as well. Even though, you know, the flight deck is at an easy 20 plus meters, the penetrations can go into the deep 40s, around 50, and you can go very deep inside these wrecks. So, you know, the more training you have, cave diver, advanced wreck diver, the more experience you have in that kind of environment, the better, I can say. The experience you can have on the Saratoga, it totally reflects your experience, because we're not going to let you do a part of the Saratoga if we don't think you can do it safely. That's completely up to, you know, mine and Craig's discretion, looking at your certification and your experience and how you are to dive with. Because I'll be frank, you know, we put ourselves at risk when we take you guys in there. If you if somebody can't handle the mustard and they freak out or something, the amount of silt that's in the Saratoga, that's undisturbed and very fine, it can create some very interesting scenarios. So you definitely need to know what you're doing. I don't want to scare you from the Saratoga. Like 80% of the stuff you can do is perfectly fine. You know, most divers would be fine to do all of that, and it's not intimidating at all. But it's that last part where people, you know, they're there, they want to see everything, but everybody needs to know where their limits are for sure. I think with the Saratoga. So if we're talking about skill certifications, we don't take recreational divers to bikini. You need to be minimum extended range. So 50 meters, 55 meters on air, qualified, using deco gases. Although I would recommend normoxic trimix at the least on open circuit. And for rebreathers, you need to be mod 2. You can't be doing these kind of depths on air deep inside an aircraft carrier, not possible. Let's do a bit of a photo slide around the Saratoga. Obviously, when you get down, you have these famous, beautiful 6-inch guns that greet you. Once you get to the elevator shaft, I don't know how well it shows on your display screen, but there's a big entrance there where the diver is. And then each arrow is showing an entry point for a penetration. So on top, you have the CIC, the Command Information Center. You have the dentist, where he's going, operation rooms. You have the scullery above him. You have blacksmith below him, crew quarters to his left, dive lockers to his right, bombs at the bottom. There's just stuff everywhere. I mean, I'm not even mentioning like half of the penetrations you can do there. There's so much you can do. You could dive the Saratoga for years and not see everything. Craig and I can both attest to that. This is a diver going towards the dentist, I think. Yeah. So there are, you know, permanent guidelines inside some of the penetrations of the Saratoga. But you have to bring your own lines with you because you will be using them. Yeah, that's when he's going into the sick bay. There are many doors. Some of them are still locked, much to my annoyance. But yeah, you come into open doors and then you see stuff like this. You know, the dentist office is just spectacular. It's so well preserved. I almost feel like I could sit down in that thing and have a root canal. But you look at the bottom of this image. I mean, look at the silt. You need to be extremely careful when navigating it. It's hard to get a silt-free picture of it. And that's quite deep inside the wreck as well. This is inside the dive locker. Quite a hard place to navigate to as well, but the risk is the reward. This is kind of what you get greeted with, these old Navy helmets. They're quite famous on the internet. They made their way all over. Big representation of the Saratoga. Lots of bombs. Obviously, we have lots of planes. Unfortunately, a big part of the flight deck has collapsed. The wreck's been there for over 70 years now. So a lot of these Hellcats are crushed, but you will find them. You just won't find them in the condition they were when it initially got sunk. And and most surprisingly, I remember my first dive on the Saratoga. It was about 2.5, 3 hour dive. Lots of penetration. I remember coming out of that dive squealing in my rebreather. I was so happy. I couldn't believe what I just experienced. I was just over the moon. Swimming on the flight deck past the 6-inch guns. And then all of a sudden, a 3 meter tiger shark just kind of cruises by you. And you're just like, oh my God, I don't know if this can get any better. And it was, that was my mindset until I got on the Digo bar and the tiger shark was hanging around us for 90 minutes. At that point, you get a bit annoyed. There's a lot of juvenile tiger sharks in the lagoon, and they are curious to say the least. So that's fun. That's Antti, good friend. He's exiting the scullery of the Saratoga. So it's just, I mean, it's a fun image. It shows the silt and the penetration opportunities that you have in the destination. So you see he's like coming through an air funnel that goes into the scullery. The next picture that's inside the scullery, you know, you just go in there and obviously you see the pottery and all that stuff is completely intact. Beautiful. This small video that I filmed in Bikini, I think in 2018, just give you an idea of how to dive the Saratoga.
My experience in Bikini Atoll so far has been absolutely off the charts. It is kind of a lifelong dream to come to this part of the world. Again, I was here in Truk Lagoon about 10 years ago, and to revisit it now with some enhanced skill sets like the rebreather, it opens up a whole new world of opportunity. Being able to explore these wrecks further than I thought I could in the past.
Every time you stand after a long dive, long deco, the staff and crew meet you with a smile and lots of drinks and water. Fantastic experience.
All right, so it's a little video about Bikini there. So if we look at the travel, I mean, we kind of discussed this already, 70-hour plus, 60 to 7 hour plus in total. Flights, more or less the same price, actually. Maybe slightly more expensive, reaching around $2,000 if you book in advance. But, you know, the price of the ticket is now somewhere between 8,000 and coming close to 10,000. So you add the flights on top, you're going to be spending at a minimum 10,000 in total to 12. So that's why I say, like, this definitely is more of a trip of a lifetime because it's just harder to get to and more expensive. So it's not like you can just go into it twice, 3 times easy. But the thing about Bikini, we offer different lengths. So we have 10-day trips, 11 and 13. Personally, I'm a big favorite of the 11-day itinerary, and that's 13 can get a bit too much, especially when there's only like 10 wrecks in the lagoon. I think 11 is a great compromise. Also, like 13 days is very exhausting doing hardcore diving for all that time. So yeah, it's just my opinion. So to summarize, Bikini, in history, it was a military test, no direct casualties, lots of indirect ones though. 9 out of 10 on Navy vessels, so the opposite of Truk. The average depth is now between 40 and 50 meters, so technical diving certifications are required. Minimum extended range, normoxic trimix CCR. The price point is a lot higher, 7,000 to 8,000 or more. And the travel time, like I said, 70 plus hours. So here's our calendar for Bikini. It runs to the end of the 2024 season. We're actually sold out for, this is an old calendar. 2022 is completely sold out. We're only selling 23 at the moment, and onwards. The combination of backlogged trips, so people have had the trips last year postponed, all the people having to be moved, plus the increased demand has led to a very big shortage of availability in Bikini. So much so that maybe we'll have a second boat there at some point, but that's not happening right now. So yeah, something I can recommend to read more about all the wrecks in Truk and Bikini is our website. So like I told you, we have a knowledge base. We have obviously the blog, which is like once a week. There's like 60 entries in there from the last year. So, and then we have the web page itself. And one of the things about Truk and Bikini, when I did the research before going there first time, it was so hard to find a decent amount of information, like a database of photos, information, PDFs, videos. I couldn't find it. And so I've spent around 4 years making this website, and I keep piling information in there. So if you're really curious about the subject, most likely I will have what you need in there. And if not, please contact me and I'll make sure I find it and put it in there. We also have a big YouTube channel, plenty of videos from both destinations. Our content and photos are regularly published in magazines. And I think I have one last clip of Richard left, 15 seconds, and I think we can start taking questions. Just a sec.
Being part of a Dirty Dozen expedition is quite unique. What it's all about is to gather high-capacity divers into one liveaboard and then to go out and simply explore our surroundings. And that makes the experience quite unique because everyone on the boat is passionate about their diving. They like challenges and they want to go and do extreme diving. So of course that's very rare to find in this world. Many operations depend on bringing as many people as possible on the liveaboards and so on, while this is quite a difference. Fewer numbers, more capacity, and much more cool and badass diving.
All right, a bit of a PR there from Richard, but I think I can stop the sharing now. Did I stop the sharing? I think
yes.
So.
Yep, that's all good.
So that concludes it for both destinations. I hope it wasn't too long.
No, that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. It looks absolutely amazing out in Bikini, some of those wrecks. I mean, that aircraft carrier, you could probably, yeah, as you say, dive it for years and not see everything. It's just
dive it forever. It's one of the best wrecks I've ever dived in my life, if not, yeah.
So things like gas and soften the lime and stuff like that, you know, Truckmaster deal with all of that side of things, and that's an additional cost onto things, is that?
Yeah, so well, in the Dirty Dozen program, so if we would, you know, make a Seahorse trip, for example, in the price that you would pay to us, the cylinder rentals would be included. So if you had a twin set, side mount, CCR cylinders, bailout cylinders, deco cylinders, that would all be included. But consumables like helium, O2, and soft lime is charged for additionally and at the end of the trip. And I can tell you right now, on a technical itinerary in Truk, I think you would get away with around maybe $1,000 in truck, maybe somewhere around the same, in consumables. So we're talking soft lime, helium, and O2. I think the main factor there driving the price up is the helium, and that's because helium is like 23 cents or something. It is incredibly expensive. In the Red Sea, it's 6 cents a liter, just to give you a comparison. So it's like quadruple the price, and that's because moving these supplies to the end of the planet, end of the earth, is no easy task, and it's very expensive. Craig, wouldn't you agree that helium is probably the main contributing factor on the onboard bill?
Helium and sometimes soft lime.
Yeah.
So the one thing Aaron didn't mention is traditionally we only offer helium to rebreathers, but we will offer to open circuit if they tell us in advance, and we need months. It takes about 3 or 4 months to get the helium there. We cannot stock that much helium, but we will do. If you want, you can have an open circuit gas bill.
$300 dive all day long.
We had one guy, I won't name names, but his JJ broke about halfway through the trip. His first dive his fill was $497, and still after over 2 years on the boat, he's got the biggest gas bill somewhere just between $3,500 and $4,000 just for gas, and that was half a trip of open circuit.
Wow. It's like every breath is just like ding 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 ding. It literally is. Jesus.
So we don't offer it unless you let us know months in advance, because it takes months to get it to eBuy. So
I mean, not to say that you shouldn't do it on open circuit, but like if you're going towards the closed circuit route, I cannot emphasize enough how big of a difference it is in Bikini. Like obviously for the diving time, the bottom time, and the price. So you basically get a lot more time underwater on the bottom, and you pay a lot less for it. Which on a trip, but it's not to say you couldn't do it.
I need to, on the side, we've had lots of people come open circuit. We have people who are not into penetration, have fantastic trips.
Absolutely. But it depends on your expectations. And like what I say, when you can do a return trip to truck in different configurations, I feel like the configuration you're going to take to Bikini is going to be the one you were planning to have at the end. Does that make sense? Like if you're completely fine with open circuit until the end of your diving days, then do it. But if you were planning the CCR, I would definitely like try and get it first. That's my point.
Aaron's a bit of a CCR snob, so.
Well, you got a few of us on there anyway, so.
we have some incredibly experienced people have come, people you would know by name possibly, that are on open circuit and do just fine. They just have shorter dives, and and they've done it on air. I'm not recommending all the dives on air, but the flight deck on the Saratoga is 31 meters. The top of the superstructure is at low tide is about 15. You can spend hours between 15 and 30 meters and see tons of stuff. If you want to go see planes on the sand, you're at 50 meters. If you want to see the props, you're at 52 meters. But still, there's stuff. There's it's not like truck where you can be at 9 meters on the side of the, or the 12 meters on the side of the high end. The shallowest thing in Bikini is the superstructure on the Saratoga. Everything else is past 30, high 30s. So except for the props on the Nagato, they're in the high 20s. And those are amazing. 4 massive props at 26, 27 meters, starting at 26, 27 meters.
Is there anything else in Bikini other than the diving, or because if you're there for
rows of coconut trees?
That's it.
But the amazing thing is, people will get on the boat. I'll do the briefing on the way there on the crossing, and they're all gung ho. And I say, okay, we do in an 11-day trip. You do 15 dives. I can do more. And by halfway through the trip, mid-trip, we do half a day dive and go to the island, have a barbecue. If I can, I'll give you a tour of the facilities, because people used to live there. Actually, there's about 7 people who live there. And by that point, people are like, oh, I'm going to skip that and go diving. Like, no, you're not. And then by then, like, yes, I am. it's exhausting. It's really, really exhausting, as Aron mentioned. You know, it's people are traveling for days and then at sea for a full 24 to 30 hours, and then you get there and you're all yay, and you're in it, and it's deceiving because it's warm and it's beautiful, but you're still at 40 to 50 meters, and people get a little deceived by it. So yeah.
The coconuts glow in the dark.
I actually have on many of the many of the trips, I say, who wants a hot coconut? And about 2/3 of the people will have one. I've had a few. I don't know if I'm glowing, but
not yet. I wouldn't recommend it though.
no, I wouldn't. There's actually, when they return the people, that I think the recommendation was 7 a month was safe, and then I think they revived that to 4 or 5. I've had 2 in 2 years, so I think I'm well within my.
Yeah, you're good.
You've been to Chernobyl, so you've probably got worse than my one or two.
But that's the thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but like Dirty Dozen offers trips to Chernobyl, and it seems a bit weird for a expedition diving company to offer a land-based trip like that. But it's kind of a side mission for people that have done bikini, because a lot of the people that do bikini, including myself, have always had a fascination with, the wasteland, the fallout, kind of since they were kids. I know I have. So, going to Chernobyl was equally an amazing experience for me as going to bikini, even though it was topside. I mean, when you're in control room number 4 of inside Chernobyl nuclear power plant, I can tell you your heartbeat's going a little bit higher than usual. It is crazy stuff. But like our guide there, they are professional dosimetrists by trade. They've been there in the exclusion zone for 12 years. And the amount of information that they push into your head about the effects of radiation, how it all works, and this and that and the other, it makes you think twice about the stuff that you've done in bikini.
So in bikini, do you have to watch any of that? Do you have to have any dosimeters on the boat, or
No, but they're like in the light of doing Chernobyl and learning things and doing a bit more research, which is all on the website in the knowledge base, by the way. There are certainly places in Bikini Atoll I would not walk to. The center of the island is red hot, but the coast where you have your barbecue, for example, that's safe as anything.
The highest recordings in the whole atoll are in the northwest corner, where they did the Castle Bravo test in 1956, I think. That was the biggest nuclear test the U.S. ever did. First thermonuclear test. And if you look at Google Earth, you can see the crater. It vaporized two islands, I believe. That still has quite high readings. We don't go there. I have been in the center of Bikini Island once, but just briefly. It's more in the ground. We've had a number of people with dosimeters, and the readings are, one guy he tested in his apartment in New York, and it was higher in his apartment in New York than it was in the little old bar where we have our barbecues.
Yeah.
So it's people. I know there's a guy who's lived there on and off for 3 years. He's kind of the mechanic. There's a pig who's probably highly radioactive. She eats coconut husks, and it's the stuff that's grown that's deemed as unsafe. Don't eat anything. Hence the coconuts.
I think that's what people forget, a lot about the radiation. It's not like you're walking through a fog of radiation. The radiation is often in the ground, and when you're stirring up sand in the middle of Bikini Island, you're stirring up stuff that is highly radioactive. So again, people not washing their shoes afterwards. I mean, it's all these kind of small things that you would forget. That's the ones that matter at the end of the day. It's a lot of stuff I picked up from Chernobyl. Definitely, when I go on my next bikini trip, I'm gonna write some of my thoughts and precautions down on a piece of paper and just give it to people, and they can decide what they want to do. They've signed the liability release. It's up to them.
Have anyone done any tests to see whether there's any radiation actually on the wrecks?
There has been very minor stuff. It's more been land-based. There is a theory that or there are thoughts. I'm not going to go into details. I don't have enough knowledge right now, but that it's not so bad. In all my briefings, I say, please don't stir up the silt. We have no idea. Please don't remove stuff. Please don't be. The silt is like talcum powder. You can
it gets into everything.
But you can. I'm more worried about the oil. There's heavy engine oil in lots of the ceilings. So that's what people get up, especially rebreathers, they'll sit close to the ceiling, and then it's like a lava lamp. It comes down and just bombards you. So, but the fish and the crustaceans are deemed safe to eat in the lagoon.
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I had my guide from Chernobyl in my apartment. We had an expedition to Chernobyl maybe a month ago, and I showed him this. So this is the permanent guideline from Bikini. We had to cut this section for whatever reason and replace it. And I just kept it as a souvenir, because I don't pilfer. I don't take any other things that are there. But this was something that was being thrown in the trash. So I decided, okay, that's my little memento that I have for myself of Bikini. And he took out his professional dosimeter and did a very thorough check on this, and there was nothing to worry about for me. Water and radiation are not really friends in that aspect,
There was a study done 2 years ago. I think it was Oxford University, but I'm not positive. Could have been combined with another university, and they deemed parts of the islands in Bikini as the most radioactive places on the planet. Yeah. It's a little hard for me to believe that, because if you go a number of miles to the west, Eniwetok, there is actually a nuclear. There's a dome that's full of nuclear waste from the blasts. So I don't know how they did this, and I'm sure there's parts of Chernobyl that are far more radioactive. Fukushima is far more radioactive places.
But I think it makes a great headline in the newspapers, right? Yeah. And that's the thing here is when people think about radiation, they think about it as an invisible forest fire. It's kind of the best analogy I have, because if you're walking in a forest fire, you have no idea, invisible one, when you get burnt. And that's why you have with radiation, you have a dosimeter. And it's something I notice quite often in Chernobyl when I'm walking around the exclusion zone in Pripyat and in the power plant itself. I make it a very big point to walk exactly in the footsteps of the guide and the people that are leading it. And it's so important, because I mean, there's a perfect example on the square in Pripyat. There's like this, I don't know what it's called in English, like the cover for the sewer. There's like one of them. Yeah, there's one of them like in the center square of Pripyat. And it's a very interesting example. Like you walk up to it, you have a dosimeter, everything's fine. And then you just put your hand, like you start getting closer and closer to it. And the dosimeter just goes apeshit. It almost explodes. And that's a perfect example. And we would be there, I remember last summer, and there was plenty of people around. This was a time when the HBO series came out. There's a lot of tourists. And I saw like 5 people after we left stand on top of that thing, on their cell phones. And you're just like, holy shit. So, you have to really, that's the thing, the more you know, the more prepared you are to be in this kind of environment. The danger will reflect that. If you're ready and you do the right precautions and you're careful, like when we finish a trip, the equivalent radiation we've had is the same as going from London to New York on an airplane. I think the last time around, last month, it was the equivalent of a CT scan, but that was because I was in control room 4 of the nuclear power plant, where it actually, the whole thing went wrong. I was under the new safe confinement. So yeah, I was expecting that, and it's not something I'm going to do every day, but neither you do with a CT scanner. So yeah.
In almost 3 years, I've been there 29 times, I think, on Bikini Island, 27 or 29 times. So far, I'm still breathing. I don't. My hair is still. I still have my hair. There's no lesions. So yeah, I've been there quite a lot. So, but like I said, we spend half a day on the island. On the boat, there's zero risk. So I mean, if you have any concerns, don't go on the island. But you know, maybe in 5 years I'll regret it. But I did go to Bikini 30 or 40 times.
Exactly.
So, Aaron, just to finish up, all the information people can get from your website, I put a link in the chat for if anyone wants to go and have a look at that. There is loads of stuff on there. I did have a look during the week when I knew Aaron was coming on to talk to us to see what was on there. There's tons to read and information about all the places that he doesn't head off to, and some interesting reads on all of it. So please do head across there and have a look. I'm going to kill the recording there and leave that there for there, but please do feel free for everyone to chat if you do have any more questions. If Aaron's got time.
Yeah, I'm here. I got time.
I want to add one thing. Before Aaron came on, you guys were talking about transporting your rebreathers and what kind of boxes, etc.
Yeah.
A couple of points that I want to add, but I hadn't got into yet, was we have had comparatively, relatively not that many bags go missing. The worst is Bikini, because if you come the day before, there's not a flight for 2 days, and we're not going to wait for one bag.
Yeah.
In Truk, we can go back to shore and get your stuff. Also, as Aaron mentioned, because it's such a stress on people that they don't realize, flying all that time, going to sea, especially if it's rough for that 24 hours, and they jump in the water. We do one dive on the Prince Eugen or two, and then we go off. It's really a good idea to get there so that you have a cycle of, you got to look at the flights if a next flight's going to come before the boat leaves. So that's a good thing to remember. So if you arrive today, we'll dive tomorrow, we'll leave tomorrow afternoon. So you kind of figure that out. As for packing it, I've seen everything: Pelican boxes, rolling boxes from the hardware store. The key thing is, if you're coming on American, if you're coming through Guam as opposed to Manila, which you don't have to go through Guam, but then you're on a different schedule, it's gonna get, TSA is gonna rip it open and make a mess. And I've seen people lose it because it's all upside down. Separating the head, some people carry the head on board. There's nothing you can do. They're gonna rip it open no matter how many things you put on it. So just pack it as best you can in a hard plastic box.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up there. I think in the knowledge base on the website, we have a TSA document that you can print out and put into your luggage. Not that the TSA always reads and follows it, but like you mentioned, Craig. I mean, I think it's like, personally, I have a Pelican case that has the dimensions to go on the airplane. If you have certain dimensions, they're safe for that. And I pack my rebreather head, most of the rebreather in there actually, and just the dry suit and the regs and whatever in the check-in. And that's always worked well for me. At least if TSA is going to have a field day, they can have it with me watching them. So that usually calms my nerves a bit, to be honest. Yeah.
We have enough stuff, about 6 full tech sets, but it's open circuit. So,
and that's maybe another thing that came up. There was a guy that was going on a bikini charter that was not Dirty Dozen, but he reached out to me beforehand because he saw the website and asked for some questions and information. And I gave him a couple of tips on packing, especially to get there a bit early, and to put massive stickers, KWA, the airport code, on the luggage itself, because the ground staff is landing on 6 different islands. So the plane is packed with luggage for different stuff, so when they're quickly unloading it, it's very easy to miss a bag. And if you miss a bag and you arrive the same day, it's not coming with you to Bikini. So on his group, it didn't happen to him, but half the boat, 6 people, missed their luggage and their rebreathers, and they were on open circuit the whole trip. They were furious.
Is that the young American guys?
Well, this guy is a young American. I don't know the group, but I
yeah,
know
it was only
they were traumatized.
It turned out it was Grant. He
Grant,
actually he had his Sidewinder. He had that, but all the side mount kit he didn't have. The other guys were all open circuit anyway, so I just gave him my side mount stuff, and then we worked it out. But
you can imagine, like, prevention is cure on this one, and when it happens, I mean, on our first trip in 2018, my rebreather didn't show up, and I had to wait 3 days or 2 days. But at least I arrived 3 days early, so it was fine. I didn't have to go without any equipment.
Scary wait, seeing if it turns up.
I mean, imagine spending all that money, get time off, and then some luggage handler messes it all up. I mean, it's definitely something I highly encourage people to do. And obviously, it's your own responsibility and choice, but don't say we didn't tell you.
I think in 2 full seasons of Bikini, there's been 3 people that have had to switch to open circuit.
Yeah.
So that's it, 3 in 2 seasons. So it's not that prevalent, but also some people have come early and their bags arrived before they got on the boat. So you're spending all that money, spend a little extra, a few extra nights in the beautiful
hotel Ebi with all the entertainment of a white wall. bring some books and some beers or something, because you're going to be bored. But yeah.
We're all used to sitting in isolation now anyway.
Yeah, so. It's just like quarantine. Who cares?
But Ebi is safer than Ueno. Walking around Ebi at night is better than walking around Ueno at night. So
that is true.
So you're okay. Ebi's okay. It's okay.
All right, excellent. Thanks very much, guys. I'm going to stop the recording there. And let's hit that.